Okay, so into the news section of the podcast. There is some news this week, Gemma. Big news that the Coronation Street fans have been waiting for a very, very long time. But it didn't quite go the way that everyone was expecting.
Really? Because we knew this was coming. This is obvious.
I am not surprised by this week's big behind-the-scenes Coronation Street news.
When did we go up?
September. We've known about this position. So,
in September, I knew that this was going to happen.
You very strongly predicted and suspected this was what has happened then for anyone that's not been listening.
Iain Macleod is now the executive producer for continuing drama for ITV.
Yeah, so he's not the Coronation Street producer anymore, maybe, but he's got an improved role. He's got a promotion. This is what's getting people really, really mad on the internet at the moment, isn't it? Go, well, Coronation Street's in such a dire state at the moment, and they're producing it. It's a funny one, and looking at the press release and trying to read between the lines, it's not really clear what the current management situation at Corrie and Emmerdale is there. So this taking place with immediate effect. I think it was Monday that this came out, wasn't it? The beginning of this week. So he is now responsible for leading the teams at Coronation Street and Emmerdale. So he's been given the title of executive producer, which both series have had in the past. I think it was Jane Hudson, who was I think she was executive producer of Emmerdale until last August when it was announced that she would quit. But Coronation Street hasn't had an executive producer itself for a good few years. 2018 maybe, since Kieran Roberts left.
Yeah. And
it's kind of been the case that Iain Macleod has been doing the executive producer for Coronation Street's job, and the producer.
Producer is such a nebulous term in the media. It means something different for almost every production, you know.
So what do you understand by it?
They're the ones that oversee how things are done and what happens. So, the director's obvious. They look through, they decide how a scene is played out. You know, a storyline is obvious. They come up with the concept for what the story is going to be. Scriptwriter writes the script. Producer,
actor, I think I know what that one is.
Depends on, you know, in a movie, a producer could literally be an actor who has got big enough clout to be able to get put on the credits as the producer, because they maybe said, I don't think that this should happen, or I've got a mate we could record in his mansion or something. Like, a producer is really, it doesn't have a set, as far as I understand it doesn't really have a set amount of jobs, because there are loads of other people that do the same thing.
It seems that in Coronation Street, the producer has been the boss, the one who's kind of steering the ship, the one who decides, well, this is the direction it's going to be, this is the kind of mood that I'm going for, this is what I want this is what I want the vision of the show to be. And then when there was a producer and the executive producer, I mean, the exec producer was just the overall, and the producer was the overall vision, I suppose, and the producer was left to get on with it.
I mean,
I think the producer's always had quite a lot of
control, and that's not necessarily true of every producer. Some producers are just money men and budget keepers, and some producers are nitty gritty. How are we going to actually get this done? You know, that it's a very wishy-washy term, and executive producer being in charge of Corrie and Emmerdale, like you said, Corrie used to have an executive producer and a producer, and what they did, I couldn't tell you. But Iain Macleod and his predecessors, like Kate Oates, have always been the figureheads for the show. They've been where the buck stops. They've been who people blame when things aren't going very well. Or, I mean, they very rarely get any credit for when things are going well.
And sometimes they like to push themselves to the forefront as well. Kate Oates was always on Good Morning Britain. She really, really was. She liked to get herself out there and do the interviews.
Well, if I had that face, I don't know whether
I don't know whether I've ever seen Iain Macleod do an interview on TV. He might have done, but it felt like
he's accepted awards from time to time. He's been he goes to the ceremonies and things. But
it feels like he's had more of a backstage role.
So we know that actors will have meetings with the producer, specifically Iain Macleod, and to talk about, this is what your character's going to do this year, this is our vision for your story, this is what we want to do. They'll have a meeting with him and he'll say, we're going to extend your contract. They'll have a meeting with him and they'll say, sorry, you're leaving. This is when you're going to die. That kind of thing. So they are like...
Yeah, he's kind of in
boss.
charge of the hiring and firing and...
Yeah.
And so
and
without
quotes about crap that's going to happen and saying, this is going to rock the street.
Also, we're very happy to be raising awareness of the issue of gambling addiction.
Yeah.
It's a disease. But I guess that since Kieran Roberts hasn't been there, the role has just been absorbed into whatever Kate Oates first and then Iain Macleod subsequently have been doing.
I've really been critical of the fact that there's no executive producer myself, because I feel as though it's too much for one person.
What you've also got, though, is the assistant, I think it is, producer in Coronation Street at the moment, which has been Verity Macleod, his wife. So she was somebody. Both Ian and Verity had worked on Coronation Street for a long time. She first worked in Corrie in 2008. She kind of came in as a script editor, was a script producer, then assistant producer. Ian's first worked on Coronation Street in 2006, and I think a lot of people don't realise, because they say, he's only been producer. Well, he's been producer for 5 years now, which is a very, very long time in terms of producer. But many people think that that's when he started at Corrie, but actually he's been going back from 2006. He was a researcher at first, then a storyliner, then a story editor. Then he disappeared off to Hollyoaks and Emmerdale for a bit. So he's got a lot of experience leading the soaps, almost all the soaps, obviously not EastEnders. So both of these people know Corrie very, very well.
And I just want to add in that when Iain Macleod came into Corrie, it was with a bit of excitement, because he was responsible for one of the best stunts outside the
the Hotton bypass crash in Emmerdale.
He was, and he also was was he not responsible for the bit where somebody had dementia?
Yeah. Ashley, was it the vicar on Emmerdale? He's done
a lot of good work on Emmerdale, and I'm going to say he's done a lot of good work on Coronation Street. I know that this news, that if you're listening to this, you're a fan, you're in too deep, and most of you are not going to be happy about this. I know that for a fact, because there's been a lot of criticism of Iain Macleod, because Coronation Street feels like a lot of people very negative. There are definite flaws in the show at the moment, and it does feel like a lot of those flaws are easy to identify, and they do feel like they might be easy to fix. No consequences, too big a cast, block filming, there's too many new characters, there's too many issues.
It's us that say that, people say that some are easier to fix than others.
Yeah.
You could very easily get rid of the too many issues, I would say, probably, but then maybe like what happens, we need to show that we're working with these charities and so on and so on. I think things block...
To who, though?
I don't know, just so they can pat themselves on the back.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But things like block filming, I'm sure that... that's not an easy fix.
Okay, I misspoke. But...
And you can't just fight.
From the perspective of a fan, it does feel relatively easy.
Everything that we're saying at the moment, even though we're ever so slightly closer to the industry than many listeners might be, we're still very much outsiders.
Oh yeah, we don't know what you're talking about.
We really don't. We've got no kind of...
There's no insider knowledge here. We're not using any kind of secret knowledge.
No.
Nobody's told us any of this stuff. Just want to make that very clear.
And even though we are ever so slightly closer being involved in the podcast and having a bit more of a direct line of communication with Coronation Street, there are definitely listeners listening who know a lot more about the situation than we do.
Oh, yeah.
And who, might have experienced Emmerdale under Iain Macleod, know more about the other bosses, because this Jane Hudson, was it? She left Emmerdale last summer. I don't think we know what she's doing now. Emmerdale boss, there's currently 2 producers of Emmerdale. It's very confusing to me, but basically we don't know what's going on with Verity Macleod. The not rumblings, the what people agree is the most likely thing that's happening is that she's stepping up to producer, or maybe she's just, I don't know,
holding the fort
until they get somebody, because that's the thing, they haven't said who the producer would be. But from my reading of the press release, there is going to be somebody. When this news came out on Monday, everybody was saying, I can't believe it, why are they producing him? Now they're letting him...
Promoting him.
What did I say?
Producing him.
Promoting him, thank you. Now they're putting him in charge of 2 soaps. What on earth? Now he's going to make 2 soaps bad. But I mean, people are already... I feel the general feeling about Emmerdale at the moment is that it's far from its best. But the press release says Iain will work alongside the series producer and producers for Coronation Street and Emmerdale and support them through all stages of production. So Emmerdale at the moment, I believe, has got 2 series producers. This would then imply that there is going to be a producer at Coronation Street. Is that going to be Verity? Is it going to be someone else?
With all due respect to all the work that the Macleods have done, I think fresh blood is much needed here.
Oh gosh, I
don't
absolutely
know
agree.
Who would want to take on the role of producer, given you'd be in a Macleod sandwich, with Verity being the assistant and Iain being the executive producer.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Like
That
an
seems
incredibly compromised situation to be in.
It does.
How are you going to be able to enact your vision, your creative vision,
if your assistant is married to your boss? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of businesses where that happens, but it doesn't feel like it's ideal. Verity might not want to continue being the assistant producer if
that's true.
if Iain is moving on to executive producer. But then what else would she do? Is she going to lead the show as well?
Assistant executive producer.
Yeah, well, assistant to the executive producer. I really don't know, but it is peculiar, I think, that they haven't said. So what could the reasons be that they haven't actually made it clear what the producer...
Why, do you have any ideas?
Well, no, not really. Apart from they haven't got anyone yet.
Well, I mean, this is why we...
Or it's Verity. I suppose if it was Verity that was made producer, they could not be saying it at the moment, because if you imagine a press release that said Iain Macleod's going to be executive producer and his wife's being made producer, would that sound like a double whammy
it's too much.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel right. But I just want to say the reason why I thought it was obvious from the beginning that this was going to be his role, executive producer Iain Macleod, because the job advert was written for him.
Yeah, this job advert was available for anybody to see on the ITV job site back in September. I think we talked about it back when it came out, didn't we?
So you need part of the remit for the job advert was that you have the role of executive producer is leading the progression of our soaps strategically, editorially, commercially and financially. So that gives you an idea there. It's not really a creative job, is it? With you at the forefront of productions, we can continue to produce the best continuing dramas for many more years. Skills you'll need: proven experience in managing duty of care, welfare, risk and compliance on a TV continuing drama production, which I think that's one of the key things here, because Iain Macleod is definitely a champion of his cast. Yes,
he is. And from what we've heard about Iain Macleod from people who work at Coronation, they all sing his praise. I don't think we've heard anybody say a bad word about Iain Macleod. He, from what we gather, is a very understanding boss, is a nice guy. That's not always necessarily good. Sometimes the axe has to be swung, but it feels like his office is always open to talk to him, and they've got a positive family kind of team there.
The thing that stuck out as this is Iain Macleod's job. You need proven experience in managing, outstanding track record in delivering editorially and commercially successful continuing dramas at producer level.
Yeah.
How many soap producers, continuing drama producers, were knocking about for a job as executive producer at ITV who could say, you've got experience in those things?
Yeah,
nobody.
I don't know enough about Jane Hudson to know whether she would have stood a chance here.
I don't know who else
could they have brought back, Stuart Blackburn? I think Phil Collinson's a little bit busy at the moment doing his Doctor Who. There are
lots of continuing drama productions that have producers who, could have gone for this, but it just felt written for Iain.
Yeah, because it says a TV continuing drama production, and that doesn't mean continuing drama as in there's been a few episodes. It's a soap. Continuing drama is a fancy word for a soap, isn't it?
Yeah, there are loads of television shows that are in continual production, but they're not filming.
No.
Every day.
Kate Oates could possibly technically have gone for it, although I don't. Who knows what a contract with BBC is?
Because she's
that's the thing.
BBC.
She's doing a higher role than producer in BBC at the moment. I don't think she's ITV's favourite person. It feels, it said that she quit back in 2018, was it? But there's something that didn't feel right about it. She'd only been in the role for a while. There was a lot of negative press about her, wasn't it? I absolutely don't know, but it feels like it was more of a case that she was ousted out, unfortunately. So she wouldn't have got the job, as much as I would have loved to have seen her come back, because her era of Coronation Street was my favourite since the podcast began. There's not really anybody else that could have done it.
No, that's why I was not surprised at all. As soon as they said that they wanted this job, somebody for this job, it was only Iain Macleod that could have gotten it. And, for all that the criticism is levelled at him, he has got obvious strengths. And those strengths, I hope, are what will make him successful as executive producer. That might not necessarily have made him the best producer. So if you're taking a bird's eye view of things, I think that probably is a strength. Is there somebody who can get really in the entrails and start dragging guts out and chopping bits out? That's what we want for a producer. We don't need somebody who's with the spreadsheets, who's everyone's best friend, who's good about welfare and managing a cast of divas or whatever it is that they think they need. We want somebody who's going to cause a bit of a ruckus, really, for a producer, and that maybe Iain Macleod's strengths are executive producer. Possibly. I don't think this is a really negative thing. If we can get a new producer, I think that's what we need. We need a new producer, we need new creative vision, we need somebody to maybe upset the apple cart a little bit. I don't know how you do that if you're producer between Verity and Iain Macleod, but hopefully that's something that they're looking at.
You're right about it needing fresh blood. My concern is if Verity does step up to be producer, Corrie will stay exactly as it is at the moment, and she'll just be,
status quo.
Yeah, maybe I'm not giving her enough credit. Possibly, Verity's been thinking, I've wanted this for Coronation Street for a while, but hubby's been the boss.
Yeah, but how are you going to get him to let you do it if he's now your boss? Again, it's the same. It doesn't feel like a different dynamic to have an assistant producer and producer to producer and executive producer. It feels like the exact same thing, except you get paid 20 grand a year more.
Well, possibly. It depends whether he's like, well, it's your show now. And, we're saying that he wouldn't let her carry out her vision of the show. Well, maybe he would.
Listen, we don't know them at all.
No.
And we talk about them a lot as though we know them. And we say their first names like we're, acquaintances.
Never even met them.
I've been in the same room as him like twice because we went to the Soap Awards. So I think there's a lot of respect owed to the pair of them for what they've achieved. I think that people are really negative on Coronation Street, and it feels obvious to say, these are the things that are wrong.
The problem is, this announcement has come at a really unfortunate time, hasn't it? Because we've just been through that Christmas at Coronation Street when all the things were coming out about, it's not made it into the top 10. Oh, wait, no, it did make it in the top 10. Everybody's
number 10.
You got the EastEnders is riding on a high at the moment. There's been, I've noticed, a lot more, still not necessarily from the press themselves, but among the fan communities, there's been a lot more negativity just in the last few weeks. So it's unfortunate that now is the time that it's been announced, but I guess this announcement will have been decided ages ago. The job offer, the job advert closed, I think it was back in September, so this has probably been decided and known about for many months now, and it's just annoying for Iain, I suppose, that it's come now rather than maybe straight after a really popular week.
And the other thing is, it's clear to say that soaps are constantly in danger, and terrestrial television is leaking viewers left, right, and centre. Is it fair to talk about viewing figures as the only metric by which you measure somebody's success as being the producer? Not really sure, because I think it's one of those things where you can kind of predict that year on year you're going to lose about 500,000 people. until you get to a baseline. Where's that baseline? We don't know.
It is difficult though, because people will just say, but EastEnders have been gaining viewers
Okay, but EastEnders,
over the last 12 months.
Their triumphant Christmas Day episode, at the end of the day, was 1 million more than Corrie had. That's not a great deal.
No, but if you look at the figures, over the course of the last 12 months, Coronation Street and Emmerdale have both been in decline.
Yeah.
EastEnders have gone up, and it's... The Emmerdale EastEnders are getting, I can't remember what it is, a couple of 100,000 more now than they were doing a year ago. And that's been going up during the year. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a freak Christmas. Oh wow, EastEnders has done really well. That's a proof that with the right vision, the right producer, the right everything, you can reverse that downward trend.
But what I'm just going to point out here is that there's a stark difference between how these things are funded. BBC is funded by people who pay their licence fee.
Yeah.
ITV is funded by commercial activity.
Well, that's the metric you want to measure your success
Iain
by.
Macleod's work on Coronation Street has included much more commercial partnerships than I think has been in the past.
What are you talking about with all the sponsorships?
The sponsorships, the vans appearing, Argos vans, adverts. For Hayes Travel in the paper. I think
everything with the Coronation Street experience. I know that's continuum, but it
adds in, and I think that behind the scenes, I think that Iain Macleod probably has a lot of strengths in financially
savvy ideas,
patching up the holes that are created by fewer viewers. How do we get the original way that you would have got money from being a soap on ITV is selling adverts in between. During the advert breaks. Now there's so many much more creative ways of doing it. There's online as well. There's the sponsorship. There's the ad bumpers. There's the in-scene stuff.
Yeah.
I think that he's probably quite clever at patching up the holes created by lesser viewers. And maybe taking his focus off of the day-to-day creative stuff and putting it onto how do we make some money out of this bloody thing.
It's tricky though, because he has said, his quote is, "I'm beyond delighted to be stewarding two shows that I, along with the whole nation, absolutely love. They hold such a central role in viewers' lives, and working with the immensely talented teams on either side of the Pennines to cement their position as the best soaps on the telly will be a massive thrill and a privilege. I've been honing my skills in producer roles for the past decade, and I'm brimming with ideas for what the next chapter on each show will look like. I can't wait to get started." So this is saying, I have got ideas for what I want next for the show, what it's going to look like. Does that mean I've got ideas for stories, or does that mean just general organisation of it? I don't know. Some might say that stories at the moment on Coronation Street, some of them are getting a bit stale. It's natural. It must be very difficult to be constantly coming up with these ideas for all these different characters year after year after year, especially when the programme's been going on for 60 years and he's like, oh, somebody's already done that idea that I just came up with.
Well, you're not just competing with yourself, you're competing with the other soaps.
Yeah. So
it's not an accident or an oversight or frivolous stupidity that he's been made executive producer. He's got skills and he's got vision and he's got abilities that make him worth... There was no reason to create this job unless he was saying, I'm going, unless you make me executive producer. We really don't know what happened. Just educated guesses, well, not even educated guesses, that we're trying to indulge in here as fans, trying to work out what the hell is going on here. Yeah. But if they don't start advertising for producer for Coronation Street, I'm going to be really surprised. I'd love it if they got a woman in, because I think that Kate Oates did a really good job, and I think that because so many stories are based on women, and Coronation Street's a really big, that's the heritage of the show. I'd love it if we had another woman like Kate Oates, for example, who's really daredevilly and courageous.
Yeah,
I think Corrie's been
male, female,
safe.
Whatever, as long as they've got some good story ideas.
I think Corrie's been safe. Do you not think? It's been safe.
They need to do more risk taking, but I don't mean shaky cameras.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
That's one of Iain Macleod's ideas, and I don't know whether as an executive producer he still has the final say on whether to use a dark nighttime filter when it's evening, but they film it in the middle of the day, or point of view shaky cam when somebody's having a bit of trauma.
I don't know. I don't know.
So it's a case of wait and see, really. Like you said, I'm not surprised. I think that the rumours going round that are saying, oh, maybe they're doing this because ITV are trying to run their soaps into the ground. They can see that they're not getting the figures they used to. I mean, it probably is fairly true to say that you can get a lot more viewers, a lot more ad revenue from much cheaper to produce reality TV stuff. But I don't believe that ITV are doing it on purpose to try and get rid of their soaps.
Anybody who thinks that there is some kind of secret conspiracy to undermine soaps in order to insert crackpot theory here is just insane. There's no conspiracy here. They're not trying to get rid of the soaps. They could cancel them tomorrow if they wanted to. They make too much money. I'm sick and tired of people pretending that they're not culturally important. They are. They
are still, even though the figures are going down, they're still one of
the
most
impressive.
Yeah, they're still one of the most watched shows on the channel.
People need to just compare it to I use this comparison a lot, but Coronation Street was still putting in bigger numbers than Game of Thrones when it was being screened on on Sky. Yes, it was at a weird time on a Sunday when people didn't want to watch it, but this was one of the most globally recognised shows of its era, and Coronation Street was still outperforming it. These are not. This is no slouch. This is not just because people are snobby about it. Does not mean that it's not important for ITV and it doesn't bring in lots of money. I believe that it brings in a ton of money for ITV, and until that stops, they will not get rid of Coronation Street or Emmerdale.
Yeah. Well, John Whiston, who is even higher up than Iain Macleod.
Yeah, I know.
What's John Whiston's job at the moment?
Wasn't he
head of
drama in the North?
He's MD of continuing drama and head of ITV North. He's very, very important. He said, "I'm delighted that Iain has agreed to take on what is probably one of the toughest but most exciting jobs in the TV world. Responsible for 6 hours of primetime ITV output, 52 weeks of the year. That's over 3 feature films worth. The job is not for the faint-hearted. Luckily, Iain has been hewn in the fire with continuing drama, having produced all 3 northern soaps, Coronation Street, Emmerdale and Hollyoaks. During that time, he racked up innumerable awards, brought to our screens fantastic new characters and storylines, and tackled some really important social issues with boldness and sensitivity. We're very fortunate to have him to help guide the soaps through their next phase." I just can't... From what he's saying about how much this is to produce, I can't believe that there wouldn't be a producer role.
There's got to be.
Unless he's spending 90% of his time executively producing Coronation Street and 10% in Emmerdale. But I don't think it's going to work like that.
He's going to be looking at the bigger picture here. He's going to be there's going to be a push to make all the soaps available digitally before they're shown on screen, which I think would be silly. If you look at... I just want to point something out. If you look at the top 10 Christmas Days... what's it called? Programs. They were all event TV. Most of them were event TV, where if you didn't watch them when they were on, you missed out in some tangible way.
Yeah, because EastEnders usually does upload at the beginning of the week, but in Christmas week they didn't, or at least for that episode.
And then there was some kind of quiz thing, there was the King's Speech, and there was Doctor Who. And all these things are stuff that would have been spoiled online, and you got something from watching it live. If soaps don't acknowledge that that is an important part of the experience of watching a soap, they are going to fail. I'm going to say putting them online digitally before they screen is going to be the death of soaps if they do it. I'm telling you, it's event TV. Look at the top 10. You tell me, on that top 10, most of them were, you have to watch it now, otherwise there's no point.
I'd be very interested to look more into how well it's done on EastEnders, because they've been doing it for a year or two now, I can't remember. Every week they've been releasing them early, and Hollyoaks do as well, I think. So ITV and, the ITV soaps are the ones that are holding out, which is great for me. I like watching it spread out through the weeks, and I think that...
You lose a communal experience.
I think as the years go on, our fuddy-duddy attitude of that will... unfortunately just be seen as archaic.
Well, I'm not going to back down from this, because it's if all the Olympic events took place at 6 o'clock in the morning every day, everybody did their stuff simultaneously, and then you found out whether somebody won a gold by 7 a.m. in the morning, would anybody be watching it? No, it's event TV. It's the same with football. The reason why football brings in so much money is because it's event TV. You have to watch it when it's on. Or go to great lengths to avoid being spoiled.
Who knows whether that's what Iain Macleod wants to do?
Can you see what I'm trying to say?
Oh yeah, of course,
here?
I agree with you.
This is the reason why
as the years goes on, fewer people will have that same idea.
This is the reason why things like Strictly Dancing and Strictly Come Dancing and Dancing on Ice and whatever else rubbish stuff that they,
dancing about the kitchen.
What's it called?
Bake Off.
No, whatever. What's the
Celebrity.
one? Singing, whatever.
Get Britain Singing.
Whatever they
X
are.
Factor.
Yes.
Britain's Got Talent.
People have to watch it when it's on. Otherwise, you're like, oh, okay, well, you could have just told me what happened in one sentence.
Well, who knows whether that's anything to do with this
These are
vision.
why these programmes have been in production for years and years and years. All of these things, you watch them live, you share the experience, you text your friends, you go online, you look at the tweets, you go on a forum, you talk about it as it's airing. They get rid of that, they will be shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, we'll have to see what the new producer thinks. Whoever it is, I hope that they announce it soon. I hope that there's not problems
They haven't even done a job advert.
But I don't know whether the producer gets advertised
no, you do.
like that. Do you reckon?
Well, you have to, don't you? Isn't it a legal
I thought they
requirement?
usually just steal somebody off Emmerdale. That's how it's been since Stuart Blackburn.
I think it's a legal
anyway.
requirement to advertise.
No, I think maybe you're right for proper recruitment.
We would have seen
practices.
it if they had started advertising it. And perhaps there's some kind of internal discussion, and maybe they need Iain Macleod to work at being executive producer for a while before he understands what he wants from the producer role. He'll be heavily involved in whoever is hired. He's going to be writing the job advert, probably.
Whatever they do, I just hope they let us know. And they're not under any obligation, obviously, to. But it's not helping the discourse around Coronation Street for people to be speculating about, could it be this person? Is it nobody? Is it really that much of a secret? Even if they say Iain Macleod's going to be doing both or Verity's going to be stepping in temporarily until somebody else, whatever it is.
As far as I know,
that's probably better to be told that than just not know, because it feels like it's a bit of a rudderless ship, possibly, which I'm sure it's not.
A good thing to do for your flagship show.
No, your flagship's got to have a rudder, hasn't it?
Well, otherwise you're going in circles.
Exactly. I think we've said all we've got to say about that, isn't it?
That's ignorant ranting.
Totally ignorant ranting. We don't know what we're talking about, but we thought we'd probably better say something than that.
I just want to say also, all of this comes from a place of love and a wish for success for everybody at Coronation Street, including Iain Macleod and Verity Macleod. I want them to do really well.
So do
whatever job they do, and I respect the things that they've achieved and that Coronation Street has achieved. I think that people take it for granted, and there's so much more involved in it than we could ever truly understand. I don't even know how it gets made. It's like a miracle every week.
It boggles the mind. And he has done some fantastic stories as well. Yasmin's Coercive Control. I love the Nina attack, or the Nina Seb attack. There's been loads of great stuff.
There's been some fantastic things, and there've been some wonderful storylines and great performances that have come out from Iain Macleod's tenure. And if this means more good things for Corrie, then I'm happy for it.
Yeah, but equally, it is fair to say that there are definitely many things that we're not so happy with.
Just end it.
Let's end it here. What do you think?
Yeah.
Write a comment and let us know.